evening. My name is Dwayne Wiggins Jr., and I'm the host of A Human Being. Thank you for joining us tonight. But before we get into the show, I want to give you an opportunity to get to know me just a little bit more. Enjoy these questions and answers as we start the show.
To inspire, to uplift, different people share their gifts. A safe space and open door on a journey to explore human beings.
What album can I listen to every single day? So I'm a lover of music, so I can listen to all types of music every single day. But I will say the most recent album that I've been listening to every day is Usher's new album, Coming Home. I just love the music. I love the lyrics, and I love how he is really, I feel like he's playing homage to Michael Jackson, because a lot of it is giving a lot of Michael Jackson undertones, but I really enjoy the album a whole lot. And although I am a huge Usher fan, I think that this is hands down one of his top albums, although I love 8701 and Confessions. Like, I love those albums, but recently I've been listening to Coming Home, Usher's new album, every single day at work, driving in the car, at home. I absolutely love that album a lot. I have a favorite restaurant. My favorite restaurant is Ocean Prime. I really love Ocean Prime, but my favorite food is scallops. I am a lover of seafood, but I absolutely love scallops. That is my ultimate thing that I order every single time I go to a restaurant. If they have scallops, I want them. But if they don't, every now and then I love a really good steak. But yeah, so my favorite restaurant, Ocean Prime. My favorite food is scallops. That is a really great question. Why did I start this talk show / podcast? I really wanted to have a place where people can come and see themselves. You know, it's very important for me to be in a place where I'm able to encourage and inspire people, as the theme song says, you know, to have a safe space where people can come and just see themselves. You know, a lot of time in life, we feel like when we're going through things that we're the only ones, but I want to encourage my viewers to let them know that they are not the only ones that are going through situations in life, that they have people that are there to support them, that they are people that are rooting for them, and that there's a way out of these situations. So one of the main reasons why I started this platform was to really encourage people, to let them know that they are not alone, that they have people that are going through some of the same things, if not very similar things, if not the same exact thing, and that they have a place where they can come and be inspired and be uplifted through other people's testimonies and stories. In times of struggle and strife, humanity always finds a way. When the clock runs low and the chips are down, these unbelievable stories of survival will remind you of the strength of the human spirit. On this episode of A Human Being, I talk with Kimani Davis, CEO of Transform Agency, and fashion mogul, entrepreneur, and author Tamara Hudson, as they both share their survival story. My first guest tonight is Kimani H. Davis. I'm so excited to talk to him. He's been an entrepreneur for 23 years. He's currently the CEO of Transform Agency. He has a book out, an ebook and t-shirt entitled I Speak Life Over You. He's also been a hospice chaplain for 9 years, and he is joining us today to share his survival story. Kimani, thank you so much for joining A Human Being today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Dwayne. Thank you for having me.
Listen, I am so excited to have you here tonight, because we are talking with individuals today that are sharing their survival stories. But before we dive into that, I want to learn a little bit more about you, about the things that you're involved in. Definitely want to learn and give you the platform to share about Transform Agency.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity again. Yeah, I started Transform Agency 23 years ago, March 2000 to be exact. And basically, we offer training development, which is like training development workshops, branding. We help with people with branding and rebranding, promotions management. We also do some graphic design services and booking agent management for music artists and speakers. So we do
Nice.
as well. So that's pretty much some of the service areas as well.
That's nice. So what brought this about? Like, how did you get into this field of the entertainment business? Is it something that you've always been passionate about, or is it just something that kind of like fell in your lap? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I would say watching my dad, who was when he was living, he was a successful entrepreneur. When I was little, he started laundromats in the community back in New Jersey, and then he launched out into travel agency on his own, and then
Nice.
did some car sales for Ford and Honda dealerships. So kind of watching him and gleaning from that, and that kind of gave me the desire to want to start my own business one day, which I ended up doing.
That's so awesome. I love that. I think that anybody, I was talking to someone recently about, being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, and it is not for the faint of heart. You must have a passion to do it. So that's so cool that you've been able to sustain that for 23 years. So guys, so we talking about survival stories. So I want to talk to you because you share something with me and I found it very interesting. I really want to hear about your survival story and how you survived, what you went through. Share with us, walk us through and help us unpack your survival story.
So yes, back in, let's say, January 2022, it was a lot happening with me. I had actually two sicknesses going on at the same time. One started, which was I had a cyst formulate on my lower back, and it was probably about the size of a golf ball. And
Mm,
went to urgent care, and they was like, we're going to give you this antibiotic and hopefully it should go down or formulate so it can kind of burst,
mm.
which it did, but it was very painful.
Can you,
And
before we go forward, can you explain to people, for those who are watching that may not know what a cyst is, can you explain to the audience what that is, please?
yeah, so basically, in my case, my cyst came from an ingrown hair,
Mm,
got down my back, and then caused this cyst to kind of raise up. And it was very pussy, as you want to describe it,
yeah.
coming out. And then I had to go and see a dermatologist who
Mm,
then the next step, and she was like, well, we're gonna have to give you a couple needles to get, numb it. And then she literally with gloves on, of course, was pinching it to get it drained.
mm.
I tell you, it was a medium needle, and then the nurse brought this long needle, like probably about that big.
Yeah, I would have ran. That would have
Like,
been.
like bullets, sweating like bullets. And oh my gosh, it was something. So I got through that. That was probably about a week of recovery, almost 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, here comes COVID-19, the COVID virus.
Mm.
So then I was down for another week, almost 2 weeks, getting that. So you got the cyst and then you got the COVID going on. It was just a challenging time. But I think, in all actuality, I think God was trying to tell me to be still and let
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that. So in those process of having that going on, you had the cyst going on, you had COVID-19 going on. In that process, like what did you find most challenging? Like when dealing with both of those at the same time?
Well, I would use the word patience. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is learn to be patient when you're dealing with any kind of health challenge, any kind of difficult season, or in your life. You got to learn patience. I think about the scripture that says, wait on the Lord, be of a good courage, and then he will strengthen your heart. Now, unpack that real quickly. The one word in that scripture is the wait.
mhm.
And God, you said wait, and then you want me to be of good courage while I'm waiting, and then
Mhm.
my heart while I'm waiting, and being of a good courage. So it's like, oh Lord. So it's all of that, like the waiting process. So it's patience and teaching you how to wait while you're in this valley experience. Yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but I'm not gonna fear no evil.
Yeah.
So I'm
I,
gonna
I I love that. I love that because what I do realize in that, and you can speak to this a little bit more too, is that, and because there may be somebody that's watching that's waiting on a process or waiting for something to happen. I know for me, I've been waiting for something to happen, and I'm like, oh, don't be discouraged. Like it's going to happen, but it's in that process of waiting. So what would be some encouragement that you would give to individuals that are in the process of waiting right now, other than to be of good courage, because that they may not even understand what that means. So
Correct.
to simplify that,
Mhm.
what happens in that wait process, and what's the encouragement that you can give to others?
I would say in that wait process and that be of a good courage is God's trying to tell you how to endure. You're in a race and the goal is to win that race.
Mm-hmm,
How do you endure to the end that you're going to win it?
mm-hmm,
You declare it, you decree it, but okay, you got to believe and trust, number one, what you're saying out of your mouth,
yeah,
that you are going to endure to the end, that you are going to still endure even in the waiting, and try to be encouraged, because
mm-hmm,
it's very discouraging that you're in this sickness, you're in this challenging season in your life, you got these gray areas just knocking you up beside your head, you
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
it's really, I think it's really trying to, as I said before, trying to teach you patience, endurance, that you are going to win all the way to the race and come in first place.
I love that. I love that. So I want to go back to talk about the CIS and the COVID-19 that
Okay.
were happening together
Hmm.
in the process of your life. How did that affect you mentally? Like to go through that process, to say like I have a CIS, it's painful, I'm dealing with all of this. Then on top of that, you have COVID that comes in, and I'm sure it took your strength, breathing affected you in many ways. How did it affect you mentally to have to go through that?
Uh yeah, it was difficult because when you start talking about COVID, people can't be around you. So
Mhm,
oh gosh, I'm used to my family being around me. And it was like, oof, you got to be in a room by yourself,
mhm.
gotta wash your hands extra. It's just a lot that goes with that. I was eating some, but probably a whole lot, maybe just like soups and juices and water, but not like no heavy food. So mentally, it was just a lot because I'm used to with a busy schedule, going, going, going. And I think it was a way of God saying, you gonna slow down, or this is gonna end if you don't slow down. Or
Yeah.
you're giving it to somebody else.
Yeah, that and that was something that was happening, of like the uncertainty of it. When I remember when it first came out, it was very uncertain. And then the contagiousness of it, of being able to transfer it to someone else. So after you went through the process, today you look healed and fine, going through that process and coming on the other side of that.
Mhm.
How would you describe your survival story, or your survival process of even going through that hard time for you?
I would describe it as being made and molded to go to another level in life.
Mm,
Because
wow.
you're in those hard places, God is sometimes trying to maybe purify some things out of you, take some things out of you,
Mm,
and go to another level in your life. And so that means that you got to be alone, which a lot of people don't like to be alone these days. But
yeah.
it's be alone because sometimes God is trying to teach you to be still, be quiet, so you can hear my voice, you know, and the stranger you won't follow.
That's it. That is it. That is the key thing that is the key thing. I think one of the most amazing things is to be able to recognize the process that you're going to, because when we're talking spiritually and we're really dependent on God, like the Bible tells us that all sickness is not unto death. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things to even go through those processes, and not and some of the things that people have went through and did not survive from, you were able to survive through. So that's amazing. So how did that make you feel to know that there were people that went through COVID-19, they didn't survive, but you were able to come out? on the other side of that. So how was that for you, knowing when everything was clear that you were able to get up and go?
Well, I definitely had to do a follow-up, with my primary care physician to release me because I'm a hospice chaplain outside of my entrepreneurship things that I do. I had to be cleared medically to go back doing hospice work because you're dealing with people with end of life issues. So I
Mm-hmm.
back into hospitals and nursing homes and people's homes without being medically cleared. And that was just a rule by the company that I work for, that had to be clear that it was completely out of my system. And even with doing that, being cleared, I still had to do the mask, still cover up and make sure, I just extra clean with the hands and the nose and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was a very challenging moment, but I think it was a teachable moment as well, that you have to trust in the Lord with all your heart,
Yeah.
your own understanding, and then acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing that you went through that process, Kimani, I want to ask you, how are you feeling today? Did it affect you? Like, was there a change in from the before and the after? Like, could you run a mile before and you can't run a mile now? How did it affect you physically?
Uh, well, it definitely made me not couldn't exercise, which I do like to do.
Mm.
Um, my eating dietary stuff had to change. You know, I ended up, I think after that, yeah, that's when I really started working on, like, weight and stuff. So I kind of lost after that time 50 to 60 pounds.
Wow.
Just aggressively either walking on the track, going to the gym, doing something physically. So now I feel great. So
Good.
I feel much better. But in that time, it was a lot. It was just like, oh gosh, I'm just dealing with all of this stuff. But like, you're going to endure. You're going to endure. You're going to win this race. You're going to come out of this. Even all the people dying around me. And there was a lot of people that did die that I knew that just so unexpectedly died because of the COVID stuff. But,
Mhm.
God gave me another chance. That's how I look at it. Another opportunity to live.
I love that. So even with this other chance that you feel like, okay, God has given me another chance. My
Mhm.
question to you is, what are you doing now with that chance? That you've had this survival story. This is your survival story. You survived something that a lot of people did not survive. What are you doing with this chance that God has given you?
Really, and I like that question, Dwayne. Really encouraging a lot of people. As of lately, I've been connecting with a lot of people, and particularly young males and men, because they are dealing with so many challenges, so many issues, marital challenges, um, bad father and son relationships, and even bad mother and children relationships. It's just a lot. But I find myself to really minister and encourage them that you got to endure. You got to go through the hardness as a good soldier.
Mhm.
You really want to win and do the work to get the wholeness relationship with your dad, get the wholeness with your mom, or get even wholeness with your marital challenges. Because
Yeah.
some people are willing to do the work, but if you have a mindset that you're willing to do the work and other person willing to do the work, it can work. It wanted to work.
If you want it to work, that's the key thing. Yeah.
Not do that work. They just want to just give up. Done with this. I don't want to forgive. I don't want to let go. So, and you got to let go. I was just telling somebody recently that I was encouraging, and she was like, I've just been going through this hard time last since I was in my 20s, and now I'm in my 50s, and I just been in this hole. I said, you got to let it go. You got all of these mountains around you, and freedom is staring you right in front of your face.
Wow.
But you
Wow.
got to embrace the freedom. So
Yeah.
you can let that go. I said, so the next time we talk, I should be hearing about, oh, I got out, got dressed, went outside, did something today, not staying in that rut, staying in
Mhm.
that struggle, or keep saying to yourself, I can't see my way out.
Yeah.
I I'm going to come out. I'm going to always be broke. No, you got to speak positive stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really that is so true because I think that when you're talking about surviving situations, I
Mm,
think the only way that you can come out is to be able to start one seeing yourself out and then being able to speak positive things like some
mm,
of the things that you just named. If you're always saying I'm always going to be broke, then like how can you not be broke? And I think that some people can't see a way out. So they stay in this thing, but that is a part of surviving, being
mm,
able to say, you know what, against all odds, I'm going to push my way through this. So
mm.
going back to, thinking about like your sickness, like what was your determination to come through that? So sometimes people do give up. They're like, I'm sick. This is going to be the end. I'm not going to do this anymore. What was your determination to be able to come out of that to survive?
Um, Declaring, decreeing, and I'll break that down. Some people are familiar with that language. Decreeing is literally legislating order in your life.
Hmm.
So, you know, whatever you speak out of your mouth, that's why we have to be careful of things that we put in the atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
because life and death lie in that tongue. So you can speak life over yourself, which I was doing when I was sick. I was literally saying, my body is well, my bones are blessed, my eyesight is blessed, my hands are blessed, my
Yes.
brain is blessed, my circulatory systems is blessed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like speaking it out that I was gonna come out of that. I was like, I know my time is not up.
I love that. I love that because I think that a lot of times we give up and then like sometimes what we're called to do is to be fighters, to be more than a conqueror. Like, to be able to conquer things that we're going through. So I love that for you. So I do want to say thank you so much. Before we end this, I do want to ask you, are there any final words? You said a lot of things tonight that I feel that a lot of people are going to resonate with. You were talking about enduring, you were talking about conquering, you were talking about speaking life. Are there any final words or any final encouragement for our viewers that may be watching this, that may be going through a sickness? How would you encourage them tonight?
I would definitely encourage them. And this is something that I learned from my grandmother, my dad's mother. Elizabeth Davis was her name. And her whole motto was your prayer life.
Hmm.
Oh, Um, and that is so important in the times that we're living in now in our society. And I just recently told, actually on New Year's Eve, um, my pastor had me pray a prayer over the church. And before I started that prayer, I said, we're entering to a season that we're going to see some things that are just going to make us shake our heads. And if your prayer life if you don't have a prayer life, get one quick
Yeah.
because it's going to take a lot of praying to keep your mind stable, to keep your spirit stable, just to stay intact and stay focused. Don't worry about the distractions that's going on around you and the things that's going on in the world because God is a sustainer, God is a keeper. So I would encourage people that listen to this, turn to God, turn to prayer, because that's the thing that's going to help you to endure and fight through these different things and challenges that you're going through in life.
I love that. Well, Kimani, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really, really do appreciate you being transparent, sharing your heart, sharing your spiritual journey, and encouraging those to continue to fight on even when they don't feel like fighting. Tonight, guys, we are talking to Kimani Davis, who is the CEO of Transform Agency. He also has an ebook out and t-shirt entitled I Speak Life Over You. He's also been a hospice chaplain for 9 years, and he just shared his survival story with us tonight. Kimani, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate you for joining A Human Being.
Yes, and one more thing, Dwayne, if it's okay,
It's
this would
absolutely okay.
encourage everyone to go to our Facebook page, which is Transform Agency LLC, and follow us and like us there. It's a lot of information and things and services that we offer through our. So please go to our Facebook page, Transform Agency LLC, and
Thank
contact consultation.
Yes, make sure you contact Kimani if you have any questions about that. And we're going to make sure that we upload all the information, anything that he wants to share so that he can get in contact. You can get in contact with him. We will be sharing that on our YouTube and Instagram and Facebook page as well, so that you can get in contact with the Kimani H. Davis, the CEO of Transform Agency. Thank you so much, Kimani. And up next, we'll be talking to Tamara R. Hudson as she shares her survival journey.
Thank you.
Human being.
My next guest, I am so excited to introduce her today and to interview her, is Tamara R. Hudson, a Philadelphia native who is a talk show host, who has traveled the world, who is a reality star, entrepreneur, branding coach, motivational and media influence, motivational speaker, and author. I am excited to have her here with me tonight to share her survival story. Tamara, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and welcome to A Human Being.
I love that. I love that. I'm so glad to be here. I am so super excited to share my story, but also to engage and talk to you and just share with the world what's been going on with me. I mean, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. I was Tamara and I was talking in our pre-interview and trying to really remember how long has it been since we've seen each other. I met Tamara through her aunt, who is one of my closest friends, Lori McClay, when I moved to Philadelphia in 2008. And it has gone on 16 years since I've been here. And I have to say that I so admire Tamara. I know I've known her for her singing and all of the wonderful things that she's done. So Tamara, tell the people tonight just some of the things that you dabble in. I know we can be here all night, but you are a Renaissance woman, if I must say so.
Thank you. I do a little bit of everything. Some of the ways that we connected is through my makeup artistry, your amazing productions. But I am a singer. I am a author. I have a book from Amazon called Language of Life, Volume 1. I am now an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. I had my own makeup line and makeup artistry company, cosmetic artistry company. I moved into fashion, which I've always really been into fashion, but the business of fashion. And I now own a consignment boutique in the East Falls section of Philadelphia, brick and mortar. Started off online, but then 2 years later went to a brick and mortar, and I've been there. And that has been a journey. But yeah, I'm a breast cancer survivor. I have a lot going on. I'm a mother of an almost 16-year-old this Friday. Wow. Which is nuts. Okay, it's nuts. But yeah, going into this end of this year, he'll be going into junior year of high school. So amazing. It's just crazy. Life is lifing and life is moving on, and time doesn't wait for anybody. So you just have to make the most of the moments that you have. So that's a little bit about what I've been doing throughout my life. Yeah,
I'm so grateful that you have time to sit with me today and just talk. I know that you have a lot of amazing things going in. Yeah. If you guys, so just know so that guys, some of the things that she mentioned, we will be posting so that you can follow Tamara and be able to go visit her boutique, which is not far from me. It's actually down the street because I'm in the East Fall area of Philadelphia.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we will be posting information so that you guys can follow Tamara. But Tamara, you unpacked a lot. You said a lot today. So just with all of the things that you've done, has this always been a passion of yours? The entertainment industry, ministry, all of those things. When did you realize that this was something that you had a niche for?
I'm a PK, which the church knows as pastor's kid. My whole family is in ministry on both sides. My mom's side and my dad's side, I have it honest. And so some things are just natural when you're raised in church. And I am a born leader. So I was directing the choir, I was singing, and then it really just cultivated into I was like the main singer for my family, my church. And then it was like you sing all the leads, and now you do all the praise and worship and the devotionals, and now you teach the choir. And I'm 7 at this point, so right. Okay, and you just 8. You want to be a Kiara Sheard and Karen Clark, you the Karen Clark and Kiara Sheard, okay? Right. So it just being a leader was already birthed in me. And that has just traveled with me throughout my entire life and my career. And I've just been through some ebbs and flows. And so, you know, I always wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be the gospel Beyonce. Okay. I wanted to be that cutting edge. And although music has been a huge part of my life, it has not been my only part of life. And whereas I thought I would be a little further in the music industry as far as my own artists and things of that nature, there were some shifts that came in my life that let me know, you know, music will always be a part, but I have other industries I need you to influence and touch people in, because all of it really comes down to your gift making room for you, but also bringing you amongst people that you are to influence and to affect and infect with who you are and who God made you to be. So that's really the ultimate goal anyway. So I'm the person that God has anointed and ordained to really move in and out of businesses and industries to affect that industry and business for that time and that people for that time. And so when you understand that, you understand why God has you moving in life the way that he has you moving in life. So yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I think that what's important is that you obeying the voice of God. We're both spiritual beings, so we understand obeying the voice of God and being able to tap into these different industries. Is there one that you love most, or do you pretty much love them all the same?
I will say that my biggest passion is motivating.
Nice.
I will say that my natural ability at this point to kind of take one little conversation and be talking for an hour just because it just flows with me that way, and motivating and influencing and encouraging and pushing and just acknowledging someone's gifts or encouraging them and being able to see even prophetically in a secondary or a worldly environment, being able to see prophetically into somebody's life where they don't understand that's what it is, but me being able to really step out into a certain arena and really focus on a person. Which is why the truth is I didn't really, owning a business or owning a brick and mortar retail boutique, consignment boutique was not really on my bucket list of things to do. Yeah. It wasn't. I do have a backstory of my grandmother taking me, you know, thrift store shopping. And so I've always had a knack for dressing on a budget, you know, so that has been a part of me, but owning a brick and mortar was definitely not something that I was really set out to really do or wanting to do. But it was God's plan for me. Yeah. And so I'm not married to it, but as long as he has me there, it's bigger than me selling clothes. Yeah. And really blessing people with that, you know, wardrobe styling and all that consultation. But it's really about who walks in the four walls of my boutique. Who am I affecting online through what I'm doing? It's all about seeing the bigger picture for me. It's all about the bigger picture for me. So yeah, so all of it wasn't always my plan, but it was God's plan. And I a long time ago decided that his plan was mine.
Yeah. I love that. I love when I think about all the things that I did when I was a child that kind of led me to where I am today. It's amazing like how, and I'm sure this is so true for you because of something you just said, but if you really look at all the things that you did when you were little, things that you thought was so insignificant or never would have made an impact like you're making today, that we are really walking in those things of always being the leader. I know for me, I used to play school with my siblings, and I was always the teacher, always the principal. Like now I'm working at a high school. I'm like, it's funny how that thing worked, right? So life be life, and God always has a plan. So I love that. So one of the things that you said earlier on, and we're talking about survival stories today, and how you survive, or the topic of the show is I Survived. You know, and all of those things that you've done, like from the talk show, the motivational speaking, becoming an author, doing makeup, meeting so many different people. Tell me a story, or tell me a time what through those entertainment arenas that you really had to find a way to survive when there's so many people that's doing the same thing. How were you able to survive and still be sustainable today?
That's a good question. So I sing background for a group by the name of Kindred the Family Soul. They're a husband and wife group, and I've been with them. I don't want to date myself, but I have been with them happy to say over 20 years.
That's amazing.
As of last year, we did so much touring because we were celebrating 20 years from the first album.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the anniversary. So we did a lot of touring last year. But in that, there were a lot of different ebbs and flows. So for instance, I started with them in 2019, and they were known as what we used to call neo soul. That's no longer a naming of a genre anymore, but that's what it was. And then it began to around like 2004, that began to shift a little bit. And so we weren't touring as much. So I came off the road and was like, okay, so what do I do? You know, I always try to still keep a little job here and there, but that was sometimes work. That was my main focal point, was being with them. And so I would have a bank jobs and this job and whatever. And then I landed at a life insurance company. But it was in the coming off the road that I began to realize, okay, so what's next? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do after that's done? And it's crazy because little did I know I would transition into being, of course, working, but technically coming off the road. And within a year, within about 2 years' time, I became a pastor's wife. I became engaged, a pastor's wife, and pregnant.
Oh.
And married, like in a very short period of time. And so my transition from road life to first ladyship was quite a journey, you know.
I can imagine.
You couldn't have told me that that's how that was going to go. So it wasn't necessarily a challenge, but it was definitely a major shift to go from that industry to, which again, church girl all my life, all this kind of stuff. But I really saw the world very differently when it came to road life, because they were, this particular group was R&B. They were Muslim. I was Christian. The road is just not the church pews and all that kind of stuff. It's very much different. And me, I went from college to going on the road. And so between college and the road, I saw a lot. And so, God definitely was with me, but the experiences were definitely what they were. And so anyway, that started to transition, and I won't go too deeply into that, but I will just say that transition, I mean, we can if you have questions, but I will say that transition was a huge, major part of what the next part of my life would look like after coming off the road with Kindred. And so blessed to be able to travel. Like I said, I wasn't really, I wasn't a lead singer, but the experience was great. I got to travel to Europe and Africa and Aruba and just different places that were just incredible all over the United States. And so I thought that was kind of going to be my lead into being like a lead singer, and that it makes sense, right? But God never makes sense. He never makes sense, right?
Right.
But I was very dedicated to making sure that I transitioned in the best way that I could, with so much critique, because my hair was bright red at the time. I know you remember.
Yes.
And so I went through transitions of people understanding how this could be a first lady or a pastor's wife, the idea of identification. Now, I'm clear about who I am.
Right.
It was trying to get people that don't know who they are to understand authenticity. You understand? And so I never questioned my authenticity. I never questioned my originality. I never questioned who I was when I showed up in the room, because I know who that is. But it did challenge my ability to stand 10 toes down and convince you that I'm not putting on. This is really who I am. And I'm bigger than red hair. Okay.
Yeah,
that is not who I am. That is just a part of who I am. And it just, it just shows you how bold I can be. But I'm not red hair. I am a spiritual being that has a message that if you could see past what you see, you'll hear what you need to hear. So anyway, that's a little spill about that transition. And I think that was a good time in my life where things were shifting. That was quite a shift in my life. Yeah.
I think one of the things that people, and many people may attack me when I say this, and I don't really care, but you were the one to rock the red hair for me. Before, I wasn't seeing that really, other than Eve.
Right.
I wasn't seeing that. And so from that moment, I've always felt like she's a fashion mogul. Like you were the one. And then there were many that
Right.
came after.
Right.
There were many that attempted and failed.
Right.
But you were the one, in my opinion, and what I
Yeah.
saw, that you were the one that was rocking
Yeah.
it. So, and it made me really start to really look. I come from a small country town in Florida, and nobody was rocking nothing but black hair and jerry curls. But when I was able to come, come up here, I really started to see church differently and what things could be and what things look like. And so I definitely have to give you props for that, because I really think that you really set a tone of that you can love God, you can have the Holy Ghost, you can praise, and you can be a first lady, and I can still rock red hair, and it doesn't change who I am. Now, you need to be convinced, but I don't need to be convinced of who I am.
Facts.
I love that. I love that. You said a mouthful when you said that.
Yeah.
So even in your transition, when you were going through the transition, even through like life requires us to survive anytime that there's a transition. When you were going through your transition, and we don't have to get into details of any transitional things that happened.
Right.
What was your biggest takeaway in that point of your life when you were going through those transitions?
My biggest takeaway. I'll end with one thing, but I will say, to piggyback off of what we were just talking about. So one of the biggest points for me was, although I was very confident in my red hair, I had a lot of people coming to me, like other first ladies, and they were like, if you do that, you're going to have 3 other women in your church that's going to do the same thing, and this and that, whatever. And I heard a little bit of the rigor. And although I was very secure in it, I did feel like, I said, you know what? I don't want my red hair to hinder anybody from their walk with Christ. So I changed it. I changed it, and I went back to black. And the Holy Ghost said to me, we could talk about the Holy Ghost on here, right?
We can definitely talk about the Holy Ghost on a human being.
So the Holy Ghost said to me, I didn't tell you to change it. And I was just like, no, you didn't. And he was just like, change it back. And I am going to show you how I can win more people to me through you being original than you can, than what will happen if you try to accommodate everybody else's opinion.
Wow.
And I changed it back and stayed red for 15 years after that. And and you talked about it earlier, how for you, I was that set the tone person with the red hair or the differences or whatever. But I get that all the time. People tell me that all the time. People say it. She was the original. And I wasn't necessarily the original, but in this area.
And the genre of like church and religion and relationships with God, like you were.
I was known as the first lady with the red hair. Like that was like that was what they called me. Yeah. If you didn't know my name, it was, oh, you're the first lady with the red hair. And everybody knew who you were talking about if you said that.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that thinking that was going to be a trending type of thing. I did it just because that was a thing. And what's funny is I did that and I never stick with one color hair for a long period of time. But then it became my brand.
Yeah.
It turned into my brand. And I was just like, okay. And I never got sick of it. But what's crazy is now you'll very rarely catch me in red because I outgrew that part. Like, and I do have 1 or 2 red wigs, but I just feel like I don't even look like that anymore. Like I just feel like that era ended with another era in my life, because even through, piggybacking off of that moment in my life and being a first lady, I went through a very, tragic divorce and a separation. And my son went through a lot, and it was a lot. So that transitioned into that part of my life. And that became a very significant part of my life where me and God was just rocking and rolling. But during that time, that kicked off. It wasn't the entire portion, but that kicked off a season of hell in my life that I can't even tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
It kicked off and spearheaded a moment in time with me and God that I know the devil's intent was to take my mind.
Yeah.
But what it did was it pushed me so far closer to God that my relationship. So now, and I know people don't like to say this, but I'm a lot less religious and more spiritual.
Absolutely.
And I know people just like, don't say it like that because nothing wrong with the church, and there's nothing wrong with the church. Don't nobody like to still dance more than me, period, right? Yeah. Don't nobody like to run around and but there are moments in your life that will present you a time with God that will set your life aside to where having a personal relationship with God means more to you than anything else, any other rhetoric, any other physical activity, any that moment where it's like it's either my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And that was a transition for me. So beyond the red hair, which is why I probably mentally, I don't think I'm doing that, but I probably mentally and spiritually associate that transition with the red hair. So that's why I don't feel like it totally. I do go back to it every once in a while as a throwback, but I do feel like it represents a time in my life where there was a lot kind of going on. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I've stepped away from, I've moved from that moment in my life, and now I'm back to blonde and still looking like Eve back in the day.
Right.
So, it is what it is. I'm natural actually because of my breast cancer bout. So I decided, I just couldn't just go natural without trying to do something. Right. Okay. There was no way that was happening. So all right, I gotta go natural. So what color we doing?
Right. Exactly.
So here we are now. But yeah.
So I want to talk about that journey because you mentioned that in the beginning, and you mentioned it again, and I wanted to talk about that because in reading your bio and knowing a little bit of your journey, I want to talk about the time or the phase or the era of breast cancer for you. I want to unpack that a little bit because today we're talking about talking about survival stories, and very clear that you are here in front of me. I want to take us on a journey of when you found out,
right,
what took place,
right.
Hard to unpack that for us and tell people a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So what's crazy is I went on the Steve Harvey show on my birthday, which the clip has gone viral. I went to Steve Harvey May 7th, 2019. And we had this whole moment. I was really just in the audience, but I was one of the ones that asked Steve a question. And so that happened. And then he kind of like prophesied I was going to have a relationship, kind of like sort of like, like, girl, you all that. You're going to have a relationship, whatever. So what's crazy is within 2 months, I started to date someone, and never knowing that would be, the love of my life. We're now 5 years old at this point. And so
congratulations.
Thank you. And so, anyway, it was on our second date that I was getting dressed, and I noticed a lump under my arm. And I was just like, what is this? Whatever. But I ain't paying no mind. I went on my little date, had my little fun, and went on with the Lord. Okay. But don't laugh. But what happened was I went to the doctor for something else and kind of mentioned it to her. And she was just like, oh, it's probably a, swollen lymph node. Don't worry about it. She never even touched it, never, said anything or whatever. But she's my primary. So I was like, okay, she know better than me. Breast cancer, furthest thing from my mind. But I'm like, it's something. So she was like, it'll go away in a few months. Don't worry about it. All right, cool. Boom. We good. Well, a few months went by and it was still there. So that was about July when I went on the date. So now we are September and it's still there. And I said, all right, God, this is still here. So what we doing?
Did you notice any growth or anything in that process?
No, it didn't grow. It kind of stayed the same.
Okay.
It just never went away. And I just felt like that was a problem. So yes, I said, all right, God, what we doing? He said, go and get it checked out. I said, all right, cool. Mind you, I was 39. So I wasn't even thinking about a mammogram because everybody tells you, oh, you got till 40 to get a mammogram. And all that. And we'll get into this. We'll get into the health system a little bit later and how I am very much an advocate for some things now. But yeah, so anyway, so I went and got it checked out, and to speed it up, I went for my mammogram. They wanted to do a biopsy at that point. My mammogram was October 3rd. I was diagnosed October 18th. And at the time, the way that they told me, they never told me what stage I was on that phone call. And so I didn't know. And then the two people I was supposed to talk to were gone for the day. It was a Friday. Wow. So I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with this information? I thought I was stage 4. I was going to fall out and die. Like it took my mind into such a deep moment. I remember my boss was the first person I told. And then I had my boyfriend to come and pick me up. And I got home and I couldn't feel my legs that night. I couldn't walk. My nerves I was so overwhelmed with this whole moment that I just, my boyfriend, he's not saying this, but he's thinking, all right, God, you just gave her to me. You about to take her? Like what, like what's happening? This moment is so crazy. So anyway, so that is now October 18th. And what's crazy is I work also, which I didn't mention, I also work for Thomas Jefferson University on the university side. And so that is where all my care came from, Jefferson, which I love. I'm an advocate of Jefferson. And so I basically started having the conversations about, what do you want to do? Oh, that weekend as well, I did my own due diligence and found out I was stage 1 based upon the record that I got. Okay. So I was just like, okay, at least we know I'm not stage 4, but I still didn't,
just the word alone.
Just the word alone. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, what in the world? I'm 39. Like, what does this even mean? Like, none of so cancer runs in my family, backdrop. Mm-hmm. And so we've always been aware that it's a thing or whatever, but of course nobody's thinking that now. So my mom, it skipped my mom's whole line. All my uncles, my mom, so my great grandmother had it. I have great aunts and great uncles that had it. My mom, my aunts, my uncles, nobody has cancer. Wow. So not that I want them to have cancer, but I'm like, how it skipped everybody else, all my cousins, and it jumped on me. I'm like, oh God, like for real? Mm-hmm. All this stuff I got going on. So I had that moment, and my boyfriend took me out to eat that Saturday. That was that Friday. He took me out to eat, and I just ate and cried, eating a sandwich, barely could chew, just crying. The Holy Ghost said, go outside. And I said, all right, God, I just need you to tell me one thing. This is the moment that shifted my battle, right? And I said to him, I just need to know, is this unto death, or is this another test for you to get the glory? Mm. And he said, this is for my glory. I said, well, that's all you have to say.
Wow.
Let's go.
That's amazing.
And I got in the ring and I did my due diligence to fight. And I did. And so by November, by the week before Thanksgiving of 2019, I had my surgery. Mm-hmm. And then, not knowing that I was allergic to larger amounts of lidocaine, I winded up on the table having an anaphylactic allergic reaction. So I could have died on the table. Okay? And so that's going on, okay? Because who knew I was allergic to lidocaine until it happened? Luckily, my Black surgeon, who's amazing, who I happened to work with before this, who I didn't know would ever be my surgeon, right? But he was paying attention, and God was guiding. It was all God guiding them. So I came out of that fine, but learning more about myself than when I went in. And then, so I had my surgery and I'm out, and all of that transpires. So my whole family is on like 10 because they like, what in the world? Yeah. But I came out of that successfully. And so at that point, I was basically cancer free. But then the conversation next was, what's your treatment? So I'll stop there to see if you have any before I go further into 2020. I know, right? It's a lot.
That is a lot to process and go through. One of the things that I know, I'm a big supporter of breast cancer awareness, and what I want to tell our viewers is that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, but you can survive. 2.9 million females survive. They live in the USA. They survive. So there is survivor, especially if it's detected early. So I just want to put that out there, that we can have those survival stories as well. So you find out, you go through the process, the Holy Spirit spoke to you and said, this is for my glory. Mm-hmm. What took place in your mind in the process of, even from the moment that you hear this is from my glory up until the point to where you have to go in for surgery and start like radiation and all of that stuff, like that process, that had to be a waiting process for you as well, right?
It was. It absolutely was, because I had so many specialists at that point. I had an oncologist, I had a surgeon, I had this going on, I had that going on. And all of it was new to me because I had never even been in a hospital for nothing. You know what I mean? And so to go from being healthy and fine and being a size 8'10" for your whole life, that going into all this was just like, what in the world? And it was jarring. It was scary. it was like, what's happening? So they were doing tests to figure out who in my family had. Like, it was just so many things happening at one time. So it came down to, okay, we suggest that you have radiation. We suggest you have chemo. We suggest that you have that. And I was like, all right, I need to pray about it. And this one doctor who I stopped going to her immediately was just like, yeah, well, she made me feel like I was going to die one way or the other if I didn't have chemo. And I was just like, I don't really care for you, sis.
Right.
Because as much as you have faith, and I'm a faith walker, talker, we on water with it.
Yeah.
But when you're in that season, you need everybody on board that's encouraging you to make the best decision for you, what's going to be best for you and all of that. Even if a doctor is telling you, like, we're already scared, like we already don't know, how this is really going to turn out, And so anyway, I got rid of her immediately because I was like, yeah, you're not aligning with my faith.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And one of the things that I know to be true, and I've been watching, as I said, like, there's no secret. Everybody know I love my Ratchet TV, but I'm really into Married to Medicine. And one of the things that they've really been talking about is the treatment of Black women in the medical field, like when they're coming as patients. So I can only imagine what your thought process is with, because it's a very true thing that African-American women are treated very poorly when it comes to their health care, the medication that they receive, especially through when they're going through like pregnancy. So I can only imagine the treatment, because it's very unfortunate that Black women are treated so unfair. So you got rid of that doctor, thank God.
Got rid of that doctor, got another doctor. I actually had a rapport with my surgeon, and when I told him how I was feeling, he was like, all right, cool. I got somebody that I'm very, very close with. We're going to go with him. I said, cool, thank you. And boom. So that was the thing. I decided to not do chemo.
Okay.
I was able to breast conserve. I did not have to have I had a lumpectomy, but not a mastectomy. So I didn't have to have my breasts removed. These are still my breasts, praise the Jehovah. Okay. And so I didn't have to have any of that happen. So, which was great. And I was able to breast conserve, is what they call it. So I was able to have it there. And I know it was God that put it under my arm, because I do not believe I would have detected it had I waited for me to go get a mammogram whenever I felt I wanted to go get a mammogram. So I know God did that to bring it to my attention, because had it been inside, and that is what they call the axillary tail of your breast. Who knew your breasts go all the way out here? Like, did nobody even know that? To me, that's your underarm.
Right.
Right. But in medical terms, it's called the axillary tail of your breast, which is why I can still get a lump under my arm. And so I opted for radiation. And once I say this, you'll remember. So it was around the same time that COVID was becoming rampant in New York.
Oh, wow.
October of 2019 was when COVID was starting to show up in the United States.
Yeah.
And so what's crazy is in my mind, I got really sick. Me and my boyfriend got really, really sick the beginning of 2020. Now, I was supposed to start radiation treatment the middle of January. And I believe that we had COVID, and I believe that God gave it to me, right? Here it is. I believe he gave it to me because if I had started radiation and contracted COVID, that would have affected my body very differently than if I had it before then. So I believe in my heart, this is what I believe wholeheartedly, that I contracted COVID in that first 2 weeks of January to strengthen my antibodies, because I would be going into a hospital with people coughing and sneezing and whatever all over me 5 days a week for 3 months.
Wow.
And I believe wholeheartedly that God strengthened my antibodies so I could come out and ring my bell.
Yeah.
And not die in the process, because the week I rang my bell was when we all went home remotely for COVID. So I was literally in the thick before anybody knew. People thought it was on your lash. They thought it was on your hair. Like, nobody knew nothing about it. I was going into treatment during that unsure phase.
Wow.
And I really believe that God truly, truly protected me in even giving it to me just to strengthen my antibodies so I would be strong enough. Because normally, and I don't know if this is even still true, but at that point they were saying if you received it, that you would be kind of immune to it for at least 90 days or so, right? That's what we believe. That's what we were told. We believe it, whatever the case may be. I don't care what they say, whether it's wrong or right, that I believe in my heart. That's how it went down.
Yeah.
And so, so then I got sick, but then I started treatment middle of January, and we was coasting. But that last week and a half, nobody prepares you for. Wow. That was when the radiation really began to affect me physically. And my breast it felt like it was on fire.
Wow.
It peeled like, and hopefully it's okay for me to be real. Absolutely. I had pictures. I took pictures. I put a video out that, show how it was like my breast was on the barbecue, the barbecue, like been barbecued. Wow. Like literally. And it was not something that I had ever heard. I had never seen. Nobody has ever talked to me about what radiation looks like or I didn't know. And at the moment, I didn't think to research it. Mm-hmm. So I'm coasting. I'm going in there. We laughing and joking. All the workers, we laughing and joking, having a good time. But that last week and a half, I had to have some major conversations with God. Wow. And my last radiation treatment was in the same room all the time. The last day that I was in there, and they will always play different music. That they will play like the Temptations or R&B or whatever. This particular day, ironically, it was a Caucasian gospel artist playing, right? Wow. Holy Ghost said, look up. It was the first time I had ever even noticed this thing in the room. And above me was what looked like a cross. And he said to me, I've been with you and watching over you the entire time. You didn't even notice it. You didn't even know the cross that was above you. Wow. And he was coming in here, laying on this. When I tell you I lost it on that radiation table, I'm
sure
I was not okay. I was not. The Holy Ghost said, I need you to look up. And the music, the white worship is playing. We don't call it white worship, but people call it the white worship was playing. CCM music was playing. He had me look up, and it was a moment that I had with him. Wow. He said, I told you that I was going to see you through this entire process. And I went out there and rang my bell, and I've been cancer-free ever since. To God be the glory.
What a powerful, wonderful, amazing story. Wow. And I think what's so fascinating about it is that, so I've been through some similar things that I'm going to share in some episodes to come. Okay. But one of the most amazing things is that, and I could do nothing but smile, is because it's so amazing, like how the Holy Spirit will speak to you during this time. I too went through very devastating sickness as well, and the Holy Spirit told me that it was not unto death. I just had to trust the process, and I feel like that the going through those things really propel you to become who you are today. And I always contribute this to, for many years, growing up in church with my grandmother. I grew up in church all my life, and I always would hear people say, God is a healer, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that because that's what people said, right? But I couldn't really manifest that or really speak from experience, but it's now in my life that I can tell an individual that God really is a healer, because of what I've been through. I would see people come in, like I grew up in a deliverance church, so people would walk in with the cane and leave without the cane and all that stuff. And I would see that, and I would experience it, and I believed it because my faith. But it wasn't until I went through what I went through to be able to say, I know without a shadow of a doubt that God is really, truly a healer. And I'm listening to you talking, I'm listening to the different signs that he showed you, and I just think it's so amazing that on those journeys of when God is taking us through the process of healing us, that he will always give us signs. He will always put us in a situation to let us know that he's always there with us. I know that the song and the cross is a symbolism of showing you that he was there. But when are some other times that you wouldn't mind sharing that you knew without a shadow of a doubt that he was right there with you?
During that time?
During that time. Or during the whole process from diagnosis to healing?
It was I gave you most of the moments that I had, but it was just the ability to just believe that this was going to be okay. So let me say this. I'll talk about it from this from the after aspect, because after you become cancer free, it now becomes a mental journey. It now becomes how do you change your mind about what's going on? Because every day, and I don't know if this is happening to you, but every day since my diagnosis, people that are dying are becoming younger and younger.
Yeah.
Having heart problems, they're having cancer, but they're not finding out in time enough. Just this week alone, I know somebody that passed away 42, stage 4 colon cancer. Just found out last year. Didn't even have a chance to. So it has been the mental and spiritual and physical journey of, okay, half of the problem with cancer is you don't know how you got it.
Yeah.
So you don't know what to stop. You don't know what to start. So it's very scary, because you're like, okay, do I stop eating red meat? Do I stop perming my hair? Do I stop, going outside?
Yeah, right.
The air? Do I just stop breathing? Like,
right.
Like what? It sounds funny, but it's like you don't know how you really contracted it, with the exception of like if you were smoking and got lung cancer. Like that's one thing that probably is obvious. But for most of us, we don't know if it's what we've been eating, what we've been drinking, where we've been going, the pills like the vitamin. Do we take enough vitamins? Do we have enough D3 in our system? Do we have enough vitamin C in our system? Do we have enough whatever? Because you don't learn this stuff until it happens to you. So I would say God has been with me, because I can get anxiety at mammograms still. They call it the white coat syndrome, where you're now nervous to even go to a doctor and get any report because you're nervous. And don't get me wrong, my faith is not in question, but I am human.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the name of your show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm human. And so my carnality is faced with my spirituality, and it's like, okay, I believe God, but it did happen before.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm seeing too many cases of how this can really go without people having a fighting chance. There was an influencer on Instagram that just passed away last week. They misdiagnosed her as having fibroids, and it was stage 3 cancer. Wow. So she died because she didn't have enough time for treatment. So it's like, when you hear anything cancer touches me in a way that I cannot explain, right? Because it touched my life. And you can empathize all you want to about any sickness, but when you actually experience it yourself, stage 1, stage 4, stage 3, stage 0, whatever, because there's a stage 0 of cancer too. You can literally empathize all you want to, but you will not know how it really, really feels until you have to go through that thing by yourself. And so when you hear somebody else that becomes your pink sister, or somebody that just identifies, because it was crazy, as I did an interview last week, and the girl was like, I have a cousin that just don't really want to hear nothing religious. She has cancer, she has breast cancer, but she don't want to hear anything. What can you do to tell me to help her? Because she's over the church thing. She doesn't want to hear God can do it, whatever. I said, you need to find her somebody that's been through it. Yeah. That's my answer. Because, yes, God can do it, but sometimes you get God faith fatigue. Yeah. If it's not changing quick, if your diagnosis is not changing quick enough, you're like, yeah, I know he can, but I don't see the results. Yeah. And so while you still praying over here for your cousin, get her somebody that can speak to her spirit that understands it. We are the sum total of our experiences. Yeah. So when we talk, we are a walking book, a walking testament of what we've been through. I can talk so sternly and passionately about what I've been through because I feel it every time I talk about it. Mm-hmm. And that's through any challenges or whatever, because I went through the process. And so anyway, I don't want to take up all the time.
No, you are great. That is fantastic.
That was the moment. That was he's not just, I don't just have moments of where he did walk with me. He's been walking with me because I need help with trying to every day do what I need to do to never be there again. And sometimes you can do all you can and you still wind up with a reoccurring situation. Mm-hmm. And so it has been the mental fight. Yeah. There's no spiritual fight, because I know God, I heard what God said when he said it wasn't unto death. And he also said to me that it would be the only time I would have it. Wow. He also said that. Now, I believe it, I do still get scared, but I said I'm
Mhm.
holding on to. I hold on to his word. That
Yeah.
he said that was my only bout. That was going to be my only bout with it. That's what he said to me. And I said, all right, God, that I'm rocking out with this. That still makes me a little. I still have some nervousness because you just want to make sure you're doing the right things, because you can't just have faith. You have to change your eating.
Yeah.
You have to exercise. You have to make sure you're not obese. You have to make sure that you do the things that allow your cells to be what they're supposed to be, because you got to do your part too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's, I would say, outside of the monumental moments I already shared, I will say that even through that process and even up until now, it is really a war that can can happen in your members and in your mind. But in my book, one of my main things I talk about is you cannot control the thoughts that come to your mind.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is combat them when they come and have them leave as soon as they're able to, because you can't change it, you can't stop it from coming, but you can control how long it stays.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
that is what I do. Yeah.
I love that. Listen, I so love this conversation, and I can sit here and talk to you literally all day long. We are talking to Tamara R. Hudson, who is a motivational speaker, author. And one of the things that I said in her intro that I said, what I do need to tell people is that she is a bona fide comedian. She is hilarious. If you ever need a good laugh.
I do what I can. I do what I can for the people, because you gotta laugh about it.
You absolutely have to laugh. You have to laugh.
You gotta laugh.
As we are concluding this conversation, Tamara, I do want to ask you, like, on your survival journey, what are 3 words that you will say through this process that will sum up your survival journey? What are 3 words that you will say
that would sum up my survival journey? 3 words that would sum up my survival journey. Faith being number 1. I would say the second word would be tenacity for me. Tenacity is huge because it was during, I didn't mention this, but it was during that time of my radiation. So Consanify became a thing, and my women's empowerment organization became a thing in 2020 as well. So I came out of radiation in March and opened up my online boutique in August.
Wow.
And then I held my seat. I didn't make it public until a year later. So when I did my first opening, event for Shiro Empowerment Enterprises, that was the day I went live and told my cancer story for the world.
Wow.
And so speaking of my aunt, she didn't know. I invited her to the event. Now this is during the pandemic, so not a lot of people were coming out to the event. But I invited my aunt. She didn't know. I hadn't told anybody, but I had a very small circle. And that's my 3rd word, is support.
Okay.
3rd word is support. So
I love that.
Faith, tenacity, support. So tenacity was every day I would walk into radiation with 2 binders. One binder was my plan for Consanify. One binder was my plan for Shiro. And I would put my binder down, get on the table for radiation, and pick my binders back up and keep planning. So even through that, I knew God was still giving me vision and the ability to still really push through, because I had more to do. And so for me, that was tenacity on my part, because I could have laid down and been like, I don't even feel like doing nothing no more. I'm good. Like, I don't even feel like none of it. But I was still able to maintain my wherewithal in business and everything I had going on, and still believed God enough to still keep planning. And that's what I did. So tenacity is huge. Support is even better, because we cannot be, as much as I feel like I'm a one-woman show, the truth is, when you go through certain things in life, you need a good 1 or 2 somebodies that got you.
Yep.
That can pray with you, that can pray for you. One of the greatest things about the love of my life right now is I have never had a man that will pick my hand up. And I told you I was a pastor's wife, and this is nothing against that season of my life. But this man will literally, in the car before we have to do anything, if I'm going to treatment, or if I have to sing, or if I have to speak, or just whatever is going on, he will always pick up my hand and just pray for me on the spot.
That's amazing.
And I'm just like, I would just be looking at him, and he really nice, and he's very nice to look at. Okay, I be looking at him, because he's nice to look at. But I be thinking to myself, like, I got a whole man that prays for me. Like, and although that might sound common for somebody, That wasn't common for me. That was not common for me. And so anyway, the support of him, my mother, my sister, and my family, and they didn't even, so many people were so upset with me for not allowing them to go on that journey with me. I was like, y'all have no idea. Like, and when I told them and when I would tell them, I took some people went out to dinner with some people, and I would just tell people over time, and they were so devastated. Like, why didn't you let us walk with you through that? And I was just like, because God told me to keep it silent.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell my son, and he is, to this day, he gets with me. What you want the doctor for? What he like? He don't play. He found out what it was because I had went through a challenge, and so did his dad. And within not the same time, but he had to experience it, and he was just very devastated that I didn't tell him, and I was like, I couldn't. You at 9 and 10 and you at 13, 14 is a different you.
Yeah.
And I was like, you wouldn't have understood it. I did it to help you really understand. So by the time I did tell you, you could palate it better. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so just the whole thing. So so for me, the 3 words would be faith, tenacity, and support. Those are the 3 things during my journey that I would not have been able to survive had I not kept that in the forefront of my life and in my talking and speaking, because I am huge, which is what my book is about. It's called Language of Life, and it is speaking affirmations and words of power and encouragement over your life. I am big on the power of word and speaking things as they be, not as though they were. And so for me, I talked myself through the healing process, and I talked myself through building my businesses, and I'm still talking myself through something.
Listen, I get it 100%.
I'm still talking myself through something. Anyway.
I love that. So Tamara, thank you so much for joining me. I want to leave you with some final words to those individuals that will view the show. And then, as I said, I'm going to make sure that you guys can have access to Tamara. You can get her book. You can follow her motivational journey. You can book her for motivational events. So we want to make sure that we get all that information. We will make sure that we put it in the bio of our video for the show. But Tamara, before we leave, I want to leave you an opportunity to share some final words with the viewers.
Sure. I would simply say, I've shared so many words. I shared so many words today, but I would just basically say that it's never too late to do anything that you want to do. And it's never too late to really follow the vision and dream that God has given you. And sometimes it might look like it's not working, or it's not working in your favor, or it's not coming to fruition. I am a little older now, and so sometimes it seems like what I wanted to do in life, I didn't really achieve some of the things that I had goals and dreams of doing. But I will say that whenever you follow God's will for your life, what you want is not too far behind that. And so he knows far better than anybody what your heart's desire is. But if you can literally lean into his will and follow that path, what you want is going to be on that path and that journey at some point in time. And so I would just encourage you to really go with God and really follow his path for your life, and really, not saying don't complain, don't question, but if you go with it with an open heart and an open mind, the doors that he will open just by laying down your will and walking in the spirit of obedience that he has for you will open up so many doors for you. And I just encourage you to really, really lean into your relationship with God, lean into your relationship with people, because life is short. And so definitely don't work so hard that you don't build relationships. And so between building relationships with people and building relationships with God, your life will be completely fulfilled. God bless.
Tamara, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, y'all. Give it up for Tamara. Yes, give it up for Tamara, branding coach, motivation, media influence, mother, gifted singer, all of the things. I say she is a Renaissance woman. Thank you again, Tamara. I so adore you. I so love and appreciate you for coming on to A Human Being. You guys, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on A Human Being Talk Show.
To inspire, to uplift, different people share their gifts. A safe space and open door on a journey to explore human beings.